We're so glad to have everyone back with us in this episode about determination. And Stephanie, Jackie, and I have each selected a different excerpt from our books that definitely connect to the determination of spirit, the determination of achieving something, the determination of respect for yourself as to what you would like to do in your life. So we're going to begin in a second and give you an idea about what our excerpts are about and focus on the determination of spirit. Writers have to be determined when they decide to sit down and write something. Every day you don't necessarily feel that you want to, but you need to be determined to sit down and get your number of pages in each day. And in our everyday lives, the different goals that we have, determination is a very important part of all of that. So we hope to share that with you today through our excerpts. And again, we ask you to, Jackie?
If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this video. It always
Right.
helps us to bring you better stuff.
Excellent. So we'll start today's excerpts with Steph, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
All righty. And you want to give us just a tiny introduction into this excerpt?
I do. Except I forgot which one I said. Hang on. Stand by.
It's the one about Brody hobbling back to the inn. And you do have it about a
Sure.
trigger warning. So I didn't know whether you wanted to do that. That's one of the reasons I asked you.
Yeah, sure. So to just give a little context, this is from The Heir of Light and Shadows, which is book one in the Heir of Light and Shadows series. And for people, just for this excerpt, there is a little bit of violence and fear. So I try to just let people know that there is a little bit of a trigger here. Um, so in this particular scene, Brody is trying to get back to Lizzie. At this point, a lot has happened, and there is the magical pendant is at stake here. So he is doing his best to get back to her, but he's just been pretty significantly injured. And getting back is quite the struggle for him. So he is extremely determined to get there.
All righty. Brody hobbled back to the inn and applied pressure to his gasping wounds. Given his extensive injuries, he wasn't likely to make it, but he was going to try, no matter what his fate, to get the pendant to Lizzie and save her in time. The cold seared through his clothes to his skin, and his teeth chattered uncontrollably. With every stagger toward the inn, he was 1 inch closer to Lizzie's warmth, the closest feeling to home he had in a while. Each labored breath deepened his resolve to get to her, but time was slipping from him like the blood pooling at his feet. When Brody finally reached the steps of the inn, he used his last bit of strength to crawl up them. He could stop now, quit, call for help, maybe survive. Determined, steadfast. That's how people had always described him. But those people had forgotten that even the greatest of attributes contain a crippling duality. Brody was as stubborn as a damn mule, his mind resolute. One more step, he told himself, heaving his body up. He left a trail of blood behind him as he moved. The inn's door was ajar, left open in haste from guests' attempt to flee. Some of them didn't make it, evident by the horror scene Brody crawled into. Some Halloween, he thought. pulling his deadened weight across the inn's hardwood floors to the library. He had to get to Lizzie. Even now, he was so close to death. All that mattered was her. Oh,
Love that.
how did you feel as you wrote that?
I think this part is just so crucial to the book and basically to the series. This is probably, and I know this is spoiler territory, but it is such a great example of his determination. And Brody is a flawed person. I mean, he's wonderful, he's beautiful, but he's also flawed, and he has this, um, he's so determined that it can also be something that um can hurt him because, he could die because of it because he's so determined to do this thing, right? So, um, I think when I was writing it, I knew that I needed to make it impactful enough and really
Mhm.
set the stakes very high for this scene because what happens here determines everything else.
What would you say to other writers who are writing a scene similar? I mean, did you prepare yourself, Steph, prior to writing this? I mean, did you visualize or did you just, jump in and just allow it to happen to you as you were writing it?
When I write like it's a movie that I'm watching. That's just something I've always done. So I will play out a movie in my head and then I will write that movie. That's basically, or that scene. Let's break it
Mm-hmm.
down, a little bit smaller. But I have to see it in my head. So I have to see
Mm-hmm.
him, how he's crawling, how he's dragging his body across the ground, the visual, the visceral, bringing it all together and then write it from that place. And then pepper in the internal dialogue as well, because for him, that's something he's experiencing. But um yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me and that I do encourage other writers to do is to visualize it as a movie first. So it
Mm-hmm.
could be as simple as you have an idea for something, like person A wants to get to, or a person wants to get from point A to point B. So what does that look like in your mind? You know?
Very well done.
Thanks.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
some of,
no, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, honey.
Mhm.
No, I was just going to say some of the vocabulary words you've used are very effective.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I was going to
descriptive.
say it was not quite this moment, but this was one of the moments that made me decide to become the president of the Brody fan club. And I still count on doing that because,
I'm putting out a
and I'm,
new edition of this book, and in that new edition, in time for the release of the second book, and in that new edition, I have an acknowledgments page, and in
mm,
that acknowledgments page, I have obviously you two. Do I mention the Brody love war potentially that's going on? Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you? I'll
But
be
I just want to
interested in
make you
reading.
aware of that. But yeah, yeah.
No shame. I have no shame. Thank you.
I mean, neither do I, except I have to say, and I'm just gonna say it because we're here. I'm in love with Cedric, and you just have to read book two to find out why.
That's wonderful. All
Stop.
right. So now, Jackie, moving on to your determined excerpt. Would you like to give a little intro?
Sure. So this passage is from the book Bridges and Ash that I wrote some time ago. It's still not published, which I might end up redoing and putting out again, seeing if it'll get picked up or publishing myself, not sure. Um, the idea behind the book itself was it's a book based in Australia, and it serves as a Aussie to like British or American English translation because there's a lot of different words in, as we all know, in British English, in American English, and even just everyday language changes all the time. So I thought it would be a fun endeavor to make an interactive Aussie English dictionary with all like the common phrases that they say that would kind of be like a guide for people to like kind of immerse them in the current language and jargon that you'll hear in Australia. So that was part of the plan. But the other part is that this book was basically deals with a protagonist that's a young man, 30 something, hard on his luck, and he has never felt like he has a place in his world, and he basically the story tracks a journey that he takes. It's kind of like a coming of age, except he's way too old for that. But everything in his life has just been a hodgepodge of a mess, so whatever. And he takes this kind of cross Australia journey trying to figure things out. And this particular scene is part of a flashback of when he was young, and the scene preceding this scene is when he's with his cousins who all got along well and they all picked on him. And he only had one person in his family that he felt really understood him and as a young child, and it was his grandfather. And so this scene is with him and his grandfather, who now is no longer around.
We zigzag up the eastern fire trail, making sure to be extra careful to not get trampled by the bikes that come racing by. The terrain is jagged and uneven, and I'm having trouble keeping up. You sure you still want that treasure or not? Seems like you're beginning to slack a bit there. I assure Pop that I'm up for the task and force myself to keep going. Finally, the moment I've been waiting for. We're almost there, says Pop. He motions for me to follow him, and we cut loose from the beaten path. The land becomes grassier and greener, and we have to push fern and other shrubbery out of the way to get by. When we arrive at a trickling creek, my granddad stops. I wait for what he's going to say next, but he only pulls out his pipe and starts packing it with tobacco. I don't want him to smoke. First, it's not good for him, and I don't want anything to happen to him. Second, I'm afraid that somebody will follow his smoke signals at the last minute and steal my treasure. You ready to work? I'm completely lost. I thought I was just going to come here, take the treasure, and we'd be on our way. Pop points to a boulder that's half my size. My eyes widen. The treasure is inside the stone? No, he confides. The treasure is on the other side of the creek. My eyes jerk back to the stream, and I notice that several boulders have already taken their place in a row, nearly paving a path from the far bank. I search to understand, and Pop nods his head sagely. I started building this bridge when I was not so much older than you, he says through a series of tiny clouds. Now you're going to help me finish it. But I'm too little to move that boulder. Yes, maybe you are too little to move that boulder all by yourself. But with bridging a gap, we're never meant to work alone. Pop explains that we need to create a system of rails and pulleys, which we are going to need to finish our overpass. I set out to find more straight branches like those we've been using as walking sticks, and by the time I get back, Pop already has an entire pulley system rigged up. I pay no attention to where he might have gotten the ropes or the metal links. Instead, I watch in awe as Pop manages to lift the heavy rock with a tug of the rope. Once he has verified that his pulley works, he helps me lay out the wooden rails over the existing stepping stones. Before long, everything is in place. Ready, Scout? I nod as he passes me the cable. My eyes widen in disbelief. I tug with all my might, and to my utter shock, the boulder rises into the air. Pop helps me to direct the boulder to the rails and gives me a hand to lower it down safely. Once in place, we unfasten the pulley and watch as the massive ball of rock rolls down the track and takes its place at the last in a line of stony steps. I jump up and down for joy. I can't believe that I have finished the bridge all by myself. My granddad is still sucking noisily on his pipe, and I grab him eagerly by the hand. Let's go, I cry. But Pop only shakes his head. I told you, I'm too big to go over there. These are your stepping stones now, Guy. This is your bridge to cross. I don't understand what all this meant until I was much older. I never understood why I was never able to find a treasure chest full of rubies and diamonds and gold. It was only years later that I finally realized what Pop was trying to teach me that day. I love intergenerational stuff.
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
did you feel when you wrote it, Jackie?
Oh my goodness, I think I wrote this in like 2015 or 2016. I remember I didn't even have a desk. I was sitting on a bed in this like horrible house in northern France with like crooked walls and spiders everywhere. It was horrible.
Mhm.
And I just remember I would go in there every day and write, and just I was very determined, like you were saying, I was so determined to do something. And I don't remember, actually, to be honest. I don't remember what I was thinking when I wrote this scene, but it was cracking me up when each time I hear it, like, because I obviously the book wasn't published. I was like, this is, a horrible book. You know how us writers get when, with all the rejections and stuff. And I think it's hysterical. Like, I mean, obviously there are things I would tweak now. I left it actually as it was. I didn't change anything, but like I like how the little boy is so, he's so determined, but then he's so blind to what's going on, and he's so proud of himself even though he didn't do anything. And he's like off on tangents, and he has like a worm brain, like, this and then this and then this. And I think I mean, I find it funny. I don't see why people want to like it. But yeah, his determination, and the reason I ended up choosing this passage is because it's kind of like a double determination. It's you have the little boy's determination to find this treasure, and in the actual story, he's thinking back to this because he's also determined to be figuring out why he's always felt different and why he doesn't have like really a place. And it's also his grandfather's determination to prove to his little grandson that he did have worth, and that certain lessons that he was going to need to learn in life, which he did before it was too late for him to do that. So even though the little boy doesn't understand at this point of the flashback, at the flash, the young man that's thinking back to this is realizing what these lessons were all about.
Yeah. I loved the way you used the word sage in describing the grandfather. And I wondered, was that the young adult that thought that, or was that the adult, in looking back,
Mhm.
realized that his grandfather was a man of wisdom, was a sage?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just going back to what I said before about like visualizing it as a movie, like I could see this scene playing out piece by piece, and I think it's so rich with description and just visualization for people. I think it's a great scene. I mean, I would
Thanks.
like to see this book, but I'm a big fan of Jack Beale and Ophelia Crow. So, yeah, it was just great.
Yeah,
Really good.
very much so. And I liked the fact that it was around water,
Mm-hmm.
because water is such a big conductor of our intuition.
Just all the elements too.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, you
Yeah.
have the smoke and he's smoking, and then you have the boulders and you have the water. It's just really
Yeah, there were
powerful.
a lot of, they're well done.
Thanks.
All right, my little excerpt is taken from a book that is still in progress, and its working title is Only When She Reads. And this is about a young lady who's about 12, 13 years old, and she is on a journey about finding her own identity, and certainly reflects it towards her mom. Does she want to be like her mom? Does she not want to be like her mom? Of course, young ladies at this time are trying to individuate, so that's a very common theme. And but her mom has a relationship with a gentleman, because Ruthie's father had left quite some time before, and her mom has a relationship with a man named Mark, and Ruthie isn't quite sure what she thinks about Mark. But so here we go. It takes place in a library. And so Ruthie finds out a couple things about her mom when she was her age. Ruthie took a deep breath as she walked into the school library. Everything smelled so new since the renovation. The library had been expanded by knocking down the wall of the adjacent storage closet. For years, the closet had been used for excess gym equipment, costumes, and scenery from the drama department, along with old math and science books. Ruthie, Mrs. Foster whispered, "Isn't it beautiful?" Mrs. Foster had been the middle school librarian for over 25 years. She had known my mom when she was in 10th grade. "Your mom was very quiet, like you," Mrs. Foster said as she carried a stack of books to a nearby table. She would come into the library and go right to the new arrivals section. Truth be told, I would sometimes keep some of the new arrivals in my desk drawer to surprise your mom. I would love to watch her face as she opened a new book and hear the subtle cracking of the new spine opening. It still makes me smile remembering it all. "Ruthie," Mrs. Foster exclaimed, looking up from her books, "I might have a surprise for you, too." When I was helping to clear out the storage closet in June in preparation for the renovations, I came across a crate with some old yearbooks. I'll bet there are some pictures of your mom in one of those 2 volumes. I haven't had a chance to go through them as of yet, but when I do, I'll share them with you." She laughed as the stack of books she had just arranged slipped off the side of the table to the floor. I knelt down and began to hand the books back to Mrs. Foster. "One thing I can share with you," she continued as she stacked the books again, "is how important reading was for your mom. Many a day your mom would come into the library and ask if she could read during fourth period lunch. She was determined to read a book she was determined to read at least a book a week. Your mom was given a lot of responsibility at home, taking care of her younger brothers and sisters. But with the chores she was asked to do and with watching her siblings, she rarely had time to read at home. It's hard to imagine my mom talking to a younger Mrs. Foster. Heck, it was hard for me to imagine my mom being young and happy. But one thing I didn't have trouble imagining was how determined my mom was when it came to reading. I wasn't allowed to leave my house often, I heard my mom telling Mark one afternoon. But when I read, I'm able to see through the eyes of the characters I meet in my book. She took a deep breath. as she looked out the window in her bedroom. I've traveled thousands of miles from here, my mother sighed. Thousands of miles from here.
Oh.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah. Again, this is multi-generational, which is the type of stuff I really do like. And as Ruthie's trying to find herself, she's also finding out about her mom
Mm-hmm.
and who her mother was and just some of the things that happened in her mom's life that have her the way she is. But the common thread is reading.
Mhm.
And how did you come up with this passage?
You know, Ruthie's just very much a part of my everyday life.
Mhm.
I just feel her, see her, sense her, and just all the things that she's trying to understand as a young teenager.
Mhm.
And since I taught middle school for such a long period of time, I saw that struggle played out in front of me over and over and over again. And I just find it to be one of the most magical periods of our lives.
Mhm.
You know, when we're in the middle school, high school age period. And a lot of kids don't understand it. And a
Yeah.
lot of adults don't understand it either, how much it impacts and influences who you're going to be as an adult. So, and like I said, books for me are that little creative whiff of impact that follows us forever. And I think as writers, all three of us know that because we're so connected to books.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's why I did it.
And this brings up for me just, I remember being younger and my mom reading books to me. And I remember like her voice, just the intonation and everything is just so ingrained in my head of how she like read certain books to me, you know? And I
Mhm.
think that that has shaped me even back then to even write books. Like maybe I didn't know it then, you know, but just
Yeah.
to form a love of books and writing too.
Mhm. Yeah.
I agree. It's all those activities a lot with people, I won't say parents, but people, people you're close to as a
Mhm.
child that really do define and shape the people you become. I totally agree.
Yeah, they're the torch bearers.
Mhm.
Each of them, come and give us a torch and we collect all those torches. So, yeah, a magical time of life.
Mhm.
So, is there anything in particular that either of you want to share about something that you're determined about right now in your own lives? Is there a
Mhm.
determination that you are following right at this particular time?
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, writing.
Mhm.
I'm in the second/third draft of my work in progress, and I've given myself a deadline. So I want it to be done by August of 25. So
Mhm.
by the beginning, like August 1st of 2025. So that does not give me a lot of time
Mhm.
because in my last I was so happy I pumped that baby out in 3 months. I planned and pumped it out and I was like, this is the best book ever. I reread it and I was like, I hate it. And I mean I don't hate it. There was
Mhm.
just some things looking at the big picture before I started doing line editing, I realized that I didn't like everything that I had done plot wise. So I'm going back and changing the plot little by little before I'll start doing all the line editing and all that type of stuff. So it's a hefty amount of work for I have 2 more months, I guess, left to get that a little less than 2 months to get it done.
Yeah,
So I'm determined though, it will be done.
good.
Unless the world explodes, then I can't.
Thank
How
you.
about you,
Yeah.
lady?
Anne Marie, you want to go?
I do. Yeah. I'm determined to stick with what I imagine. I have a very vivid imagination. I do. And just because of a number of different things that have been cycling in and out of my life, I have the imagination and the wherewithal to jump into the magic that I want to create. And sometimes, how shall I say, the spirit's willing, but the flesh is weak. And so I've been finding that to be something that I need to be determined to talk to those two sides of what's going on in my life currently.
Mm.
So just to stay determined, and determined doesn't mean, to me, the word determined means victory.
Mm.
It means being gentle with yourself. It means being dedicated to yourself. So that's my determination right now, just to talk to those two sides of me that right now are finding just a little bit of conflict. And so I'm trying to be gracious to both sides. So that's my determination right now. Good.
My determination is to get book 2 out on time. So, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, that's good. Well, we thank everyone for being here with us today, really. And please reach out in comments and tell us what you're determined about. We'd love to hear it. We'd love to connect with you. And don't forget, Jackie, too.
Like, subscribe, and comment below.
Thank you for
guys so
being
much.
with us today.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.